First question for this week comes from Brandon Laurie. That's at Brandon is right. From the outside, it looked like George Pickens was a problem for Pittsburgh, but did you ever get the sense he was an issue for the Steelers inside the locker room? A question of if the perception is in fact reality. And the answer, Brandon, I would say is yes. That things weren't always perfect between the Steelers and George Pickens. Now, one thing for background that you should know here is that Mike Tomlin has always been the best at managing personalities and being able to work with whoever the personnel department hands him. So whether it's a guy with a great personality, a tough personality, whether it's an energetic guy, a guy who needs a kick in the ass, he's always been great at figuring out what his players need and how to manage all of them. So I always cast a skeptical eye to the player that no longer works in Pittsburgh. And we've seen it the last few years, the receiver position in particular. They know when to cut bait on guys. And this applies to guys like Martavius Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, certainly, Antonio Brown, most famously. And so one of the reasons they've been able to build up the roster that they've been able to build up over the years, and they've generally been one of the more talented teams in football, is because they can cast a wider net, because Mike Tomlin doesn't need a certain personality to work with. He can work with all kinds of people. He's one of the best people person in the league. And again, that shows up in the way that they're able to procure talent. So that's number one. That's an important background piece to all of this. Now, as for Pickens specifically, I don't think that this is a bad guy. I think, in fact, most Steelers people would tell you they think he's a good-hearted guy. But it does take a lot of work to keep the train on the tracks. And that's something that the Steelers experienced over the last 3 years. They wouldn't be walking away from George Pickens if that wasn't the case. And really what it comes down to, and what it has come down to over the years, is George Pickens dealing with his frustration, his consistency on the field. Sometimes his frustration with the direction of the offense or his role in it has led to inconsistency on the field in route running or drops. This is a guy who is supremely talented, and on talent alone, if he was healthy, and he wasn't healthy going into the draft, but if he was healthy, he didn't have any character issues, like, this is a guy who would have been a top 5 pick, is that sort of talent. In fact, if you want to go back 5 or 6 years, when we were doing predictions on what was going to happen in the next decade at the start of this decade, I think I picked George Pickens to be the leading receiver for the decade. It was something like that, because he was that big a talent at the University of Georgia. But this sort of stuff has always held him back. So now the question for the Cowboys becomes, can we bring him in and manage his personality? And it's going to be up to a lot of people. Brian Schottenheimer, first and foremost, is a first-year head coach, building the right sort of culture that's going to be able to work with a guy like this. And then, I think, you go down to the assistant coaches and then the people in the receiver room. What's his relationship going to be like with CeeDee Lamb, especially in a year where George Pickens is playing for a new contract, is playing for life-changing money. So it's going to be easy for everybody to get along in May and June. In October, November, what happens if you go through 3 or 4 weeks where he catches a total of 10 balls? Is that going to be a problem? These are the sorts of things you got to keep an eye on. Again, I don't think George Pickens is a bad-hearted guy, but these are things that have followed him, and it's why he's available right now. It's why he hasn't been paid to his talent. It's why he wasn't drafted in the first place to his talent. So again, this is something that I think you go in with an open mind and how this is going to turn out in Dallas, but you have the knowledge of everything that's happened before and what it's going to take, again, to keep that train on the tracks.